Hey, welcome to episode 4? Yeah, 4 of the Cellarcast. It's weird to think that I'm doing this, I've been doing this for about a month now. Uh, if there's any, weird audio things, uh, in this recording, probably because, I am using dark Audacity. I don't. If anyone hasn't been keeping up with the news about audio recording software, Audacity was the audio recording editing software that is free and open source and everyone uses it. It was bought out by, I believe, a Russian company, and they have introduced some slightly concerning privacy policies that I'm makes me not super comfortable with using it as an audio software. So I've switched over to an open source, a fork of it called Dark Audacity, and it is suitably edgy. It has a very nice kind of black and orange color scheme. In any event, this one is a little more lighthearted. I think that I've got a little more lighthearted topics on the docket that I was thinking about this week. One that might get a little deep, but yeah, I had a weird morning. I went to at 4:30 in the morning. I went to go get a drink from my kitchen, and I needed a glass, so I look in our cupboard, and there's two glasses in there that are stacked on top of each other, which normally wouldn't be a problem, but I tried to pull one out, and I found out that apparently it was not just dropped in. It was dropped in, and then whoever had unloaded it in the house shoved it in and twisted it, so these two glasses were pneumatically sealed together, and it was I'm trying to pull one of them out, and I just can't do it. So I'm like, okay, well, someone is gonna have to deal with this at some point, and might as well be me. So I tried as carefully as I could, and maybe it's my fault. Maybe I shouldn't have gone for it. Maybe I could have gotten some WD-40 and lathered it up on the inside between the glasses. But I tried to twist as carefully as I could, and kind of twist and pull like it was a bop it, and then I pulled it out. I pulled them apart, and it's weird. It kind of everything sort of happened at once. I remember I pulled it apart, and there was a pop, and they separated for a split second, and then one of them, I think the outer one, just exploded. It just completely disintegrated in my hands, and glass just exploded all over the kitchen, which is a kind of alarming thing to happen. It was literally just, I guess the force was too much. It was a total critical structural failure. And it was all right. I got one tiny cut on my thumb, near the base of my thumb. So overall, I came out pretty unscathed. It was, the type of glass that it was. It wasn't super sharp when it broke, but it was it'll nick you. But there was glass everywhere, and it was like snow. It was in the way it was kind of crystallized. and some of it was around the floor in chunks. And so I immediately just ran to the sink and like washed all the glass shards off of my hand, and swept that up. So that was how my morning went. Other than that, I had a pretty normal day. No video last week, or on Friday. I'm giving myself a little bit of a break. I've been feeling a little strange recently and sort of like weird and low energy. I don't know if I'm burning out or if I just screwed up my sleep schedule. Maybe both. I was farming for a mount in Final Fantasy XIV. I got it, and it looks really cool, and I don't regret it at all. It was the Kobold mount for getting the Kobold Beast Tribes quests complete, and I thought it looked sick, but it did take me all night, and I messed up all my sleep, my whole sleep schedule. Which I found recently has been affecting me more and more. I used to, when I was in high school, I was just able to have probably like the least healthy sleep schedule you could imagine, and I was able to function with it. But now I deviate a little bit, and I just get totally just completely messed up. I get totally destroyed. Might have had a little something to do with the fact that I got my COVID shot recently, so because I did take a nap that felt a little like uncharacteristic. I was like, oh, why am I so tired? It was for like one day. I don't remember when exactly I took that nap and how closely it lines up with getting the shot. But yeah, so there will be a video technically this week when this goes up on Monday. I like to record these on Sundays so I get the most up-to-date news possible before it goes out. But for some reason, these videos take forever to render. Anyway, I've been rambling for like 7 minutes. Let's get on to the first story. So this is an interesting one. Google sued by 37 U.S. states over Play Store monopoly. This one comes from gamesindustry.biz. I love .biz names. It's so like a .com bubble to me. I took a shower and brushed my teeth like 30 minutes ago, and I still have like the minty lingering in my mouth. And so trying to drink anything is really painful, except for milk. Milk tastes pretty all right after brushing my teeth, so I've got a little glass of that. Anyway, so yeah, 37 U.S. state and district attorneys have sued Google over alleged efforts to unlawfully maintain a monopoly on Android devices. This is really weird to me because I should go through some of the quotes. Basically, they're saying Google has, quote, taken steps to close the ecosystem since it acquired Android, and alleges that the company has taken steps to buy off key app developers as well as Samsung in order to limit competition on Android. That is sort of true. I think there's this amazing statement from Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes. He says Google Play is not fair play. Ooh. Some hot bars from him. Yeah, basically claiming it has a monopolistic power. I think this is a little weird, personally. Like, you could probably make a statement. I feel like, if anything, you should be going after Apple for this exact same thing. And in fact, Epic is trying to sue Apple for that. Well, they are suing them. I mean, I don't know successfully yet. We don't know. But Android is such a weird thing to single out as being monopolistic when it's of the two big mobile operating systems, it is the only one where you can actually download and use third-party app stores. Like, you have to jailbreak an iPhone to do that. I don't even know if you can. You probably can use third-party. I mean, that's probably the whole point of jailbreaking an iPhone, is just to make it more like an Android device. Um. Yeah. So. It's super strange to me that they would be suing them over this. I myself have used. I use an Android, and I've used third-party app stores to download Mega Man mobile games before they were available in North America. And yeah, because like you'd think like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, yeah, of course Google owns Android, so of course they would ship Android phones with the Google Play Store installed. Like, they're not going to ship it with their competitions. And then most people are just lazy, so or they don't feel the need to go beyond the Play Store, so they just stick with that. Which honestly is like me. Like, I don't really download. I'm not always like on the hunt for new apps or anything. And like most people, it's kind of like Steam. It's like, yeah, there are other storefronts out there that are, like GOG is good, and I've never used the Epic Store. I've heard it kind of sucks from a usability standpoint. But like, there's other competition. It's just Steam. Like, can you really fault them for being there early and being the one that everyone uses? Really, I don't think you can. It's such a kind of befuddling complaint to pose at them. The states have also not ruled out taking similar action against Apple's App Store. Yeah, so I don't know why you wouldn't just do that first, because Apple has a monopoly is like technically correct. At the same time, they make the phone and the operating system. So I don't know if it's ever been legislated actually, like how much control you have over that. It might be in the user agreement or something like that. I feel like, I don't know if there's a great argument legally for either of these, for the monopoly angle against either of these cases for different reasons. I might be totally wrong. You could disagree with me, but I found this a little strange. This wasn't on the docket, but as I scroll down, I see a story from a few days ago about Stadia introducing a 70% revenue share for pro subscriptions. And I'm just laughing at this. Oh, this story about Google. I guess they're trying to make it a thing, or they're trying to get they might be trying to get some last minute. They're trying to maximize what they get. They're in the death throes, and they're trying of the Stadia service, and they're trying to get as much as they can before it goes bye. All right, so the next story. Netflix to add video games on its service at no added cost in the next year. This one is weird. This one comes courtesy of CNET. So yeah, really not much to the story besides the fact that so Netflix has hired this guy who used to work at Oculus, EA, and Zynga, so a real moneymaker. Mike Verdu as VP of Games Development. Who is president? Who is P of Games Development? I am wondering. So yeah, there is like a bit of a a bit of a precedent for it. Like they did the interactive Bandersnatch, semi-related to the video that I did, which you should go check out. I think that's still a really fun video. Yeah, really not much to it besides them saying that, like, yep, we are trying to figure out a game streaming service. This one is interesting to me because, like, when you look at other streaming services, they've always kind of been... I think the advantage that Netflix has is a built-in... They have the install base, basically. Like, Stadia was like this separate product that you had to buy, and then there's a free version, but it wasn't even available for the longest time. You had to like know about it first of all, and then you had to go buy it, and then you had to pay. Was there a subscription? I literally don't even know how Stadia worked as a service. And then as a service, it kind of blew just because the latency was all messed up. It was extremely inconsistent, and the selection of games was extremely paltry. And everyone just kind of forgot about it, and no one was that interested. No one was like forced to interact with it. It wasn't really a part of your world. It was like a separate thing from your world. The Netflix thing is interesting because a lot of people have Netflix, and this might be, looking at it from a business sense, because everyone's trying to get their own streaming services right now. Like, I think a great example is like The Office. Like, The Office got its second wind entirely from Netflix, from it just being available on Netflix, which was like the perfect format for that show to be enjoyed in. And then NBC or whoever the hell owns it plucked it out and put it on their own streaming service. So I think Netflix might be eyeing up games because there's this looming threat that like these big media conglomerates are going to look at the short-term profits, because the thing is that with the multiplicative growth of all these different streaming services, eventually there's going to be a bubble and it's going to pop, and there won't be enough money to go around. It's going to be like the game industry and the American console industry in the 80s. There literally will not be enough money to go around, and everything's going to crash except for the few services that probably like Netflix that still offer pretty consistent large catalog. It's a little getting out of the scope of this, but they're preempting, I think. They're anticipating there's this threat of all these conglomerates taking their programming and their movies and all that off of Netflix and putting it on their streaming services. You know what has no danger of that happening to? Video games. Because other than like PSN, there's no details on how this is going to work. Like, is it gonna be a PC? Is it going to be like a PC versions, like Steam versions of games or something like that? Or is it going to be console versions? Who knows? I'm pretty sure that Stadia was running PC versions because they were in like 4K. Well, they were technically in 4K, and then they were streamed in 1080p. So I have no idea how they're gonna implement this. I am actually quite curious, like what their selection's going to be and what SKU that they're going to be run on off of the Netflix servers. So the Netflix servers, it's probably going to be, I don't know, PCs? Like PC versions? And not consoles? Unless they do some kind of partnership, which I kind of doubt. Maybe with Microsoft. Maybe that's how Microsoft's going to come back. They're just going to phase out Halo Infinite's going to bomb, and then they're going to phase out of the console market after the Series X and S. And then they're going to make all their money off the back end of a partnership with Netflix. So yeah, apparently it's going to be basically just like a tab on the Netflix app, I guess. I wonder how they're going to do it for mobile. You might be able to, yeah, I mean, if it's streaming, you'd probably be able to just put it on mobile. Console game playing. There might be some, to get back to what I was saying initially about this, there might be some merit to this, as opposed to the other services which have kind of failed in the past. And that's just that, like, so many people already own and use Netflix, and they own a subscription, or they pay for it. Do you own a subscription? You pay for a subscription. You have such a large install base to begin with that, like, the chances are that, you know, a lot of these are young people of all ages, but a lot of young people, or people who are of a gamer generation. Ooh, I did not mean for that voice crack. Holy crap. People of a gamer generation who are like, oh, cool, Netflix can play games? That's cool, let me check that out. And they might get invested in it. I remember I owned for a few years, I had an NVIDIA Shield. If no one knows what that is, if you look up a picture of it, it was basically like a little console. Well, it was like a mini console that ran Android OS, and it had a touch screen, and it was basically like attached to, it was like a DS where if the screen flipped up, but the controller was huge, I'm assuming the bottom half was huge, I'm assuming to fit the actual internals of the machine and the bits for the controller. And it was like a full-on like Xbox type controller, and it could play games, and you could do all your internet stuff on it and your Android. And I got it as a gift from like some friends of my grandparents. They went to I was visiting my grandparents, and my grandfather's he's a techie Silicon Valley guy, and so his friend had we were at one of their friends' house for like a dinner, and they were like, yeah, hey, we went to this this thing, like a conference, and they gave us this thing, and I don't, do your grandkids want to have it? And so we got this weird limited run NVIDIA Shield thing. It was kind of obscure. I remember telling people about this. They'd never heard of it. I enjoyed it, actually. I liked using it. It ran pretty smoothly from what I remember, and I stumbled upon it. It had a game, like a game streaming service that NVIDIA was test running that I think they never ended up doing. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like an alpha or a beta stage, and I remember I played some of Darksiders 2, played a few hours of that. I played like 12 hours of Borderlands 2, and that was about it. And it had some problems with like overheating and stuff like that, and frame rate drops, but it's pretty neat. All things considered, I was like, wait, I can just, because it was like a beta, so I didn't have to like pay for anything. It just came with the the hardware. So I was like, oh, I just get like games for free? That's pretty cool. I think a lot of people are gonna have that with this this Netflix thing of oh, cool. I can play I have no idea what they're gonna. I can play a Borderlands on my Netflix. Cool, sweet, awesome. So I'm very excited. I'm not excited. I actually don't use Netflix because I don't watch anything. But I'm very interested in how that's gonna pan out. Next. Next story is just something that it's a little bit of an unfortunate name. Sometimes there's a good game with a bad name. This one comes to us. It is from GameFreaks365.com. I've never heard of this, but they have this this story about this game releasing for iOS. It is like a words with, it's not like a words with friends thing. It's like a let's see. Must find words within other words. Okay, that sounds neat. However, the name is Words and Words. Now, if it's not clear from just me speaking that, it is spelled words, like the word words, then the letter N, and then words again. So it's words. Dude, one single comma in this title brings the whole thing down. Words and words. I'm not saying anything. Hey, look, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying the name of the game. Words and words. It's great because you can I hope there's like a multiplayer thing so you can show up to like your friends and be like, hey, you want to play some words and words? You want to play some Hey, I'm thinking of playing some words and words. Like, how did they not see? How did they not see? Like, you just look at it, and it's specifically like the title screen, like the load-in screen with like the logo, you know, where it's just loading the app. It's the logo, it's like two W's, and they sort of make an N between them, where they like overlap, and then below it is the name, and N words. N words is on its own line. It's words, and then a second line is N words. Oh, just wonderful. It's just magical. So it got me thinking about unfortunately named games, and I found this thread on NeoGAF with a couple good examples, like someone lists Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. That one's pretty egregious, but I really like the NES game SCAT, Special Cybernetic Attack Team. What I love about SCAT is that you read like Special Cybernetic Attack Team, and the S is not necessary. You could have just called it Cybernetic Attack Team, or like what's like another, what can you roll into a C sound? Maybe like a vowel? You could have just gone cat, honestly. You could have a cat. You could have gone for Advanced Cybernetic Attack Team. Like, why not? Enhanced Cybernetic Attack Team, right? Uh, literally naming your game Scat. Wonderful. And then there's... I don't know what this game is, but it's for the DS. The cover is looks like Korean. And it's called Touch. It's called Touch Dick. It's called Touch Dick, and the dick is spelled D-I-C. What the hell is this game? I've been thinking about this. Oh, it's Dictionary. Oh no, it's supposed to be Touch Dictionary. Why is it called Touch Dick? Oh, it was renamed to Dictionary, and the cover is just like a finger pointing down at the U in Touch. Oh dear. Oh, maybe Wikipedia says released exclusively in South Korea, meaning that I guess maybe it's more common to shorten it to Dick. Why do you gotta go with touch? Like, you picked the worst verb. You picked the worst verb to go before the word dick. There's some other classics like 3D Balls, the game Wet. What the fuck is Wet? What the fuck is Wet? Wet game. PS4? How recent is this? 2009? Why did it say PS4? Okay, PlayStation 3. Okay, it's like a kind of like some like 7th gen third person shooter that sort of came and went, or came and wet, depending on how you look at it. Why call it Wet? Who in the development process was... There's like one word titles. You can go like dirt. You can go blood. You can go bullet. You can go gun. Wet is like not... not cool. I recall... So like the first person in this thread, this thread was forwarded by, well, technically the thread was opened by a guy who brings up the Super Famicom game Lady Stalker, which is a weird title, but it just looks like looks like a weird isometric JRPG. However, the first reply is Kingdom Hearts, and it really got me thinking about how horrible Japanese names are for games. Like, they are bad. I think it has to do with the fact that it's much the way that the languages work. I've been teaching myself Japanese for the last few months, I want to say, like last 2 months. I've been teaching myself Japanese. So I'm by no means an expert, and I'm not good at it by any stretch of the imagination, but I have somewhat of an understanding of the way that the language works now, and I think it comes down to the fact that, like, you see these games with really long names in English, and I think it's just that, like, when you write it in Japanese, it's much more compact because of the way that their language works. Because you can write so much more meaning into a single character, or like 2 characters, than you can in English. Even though, it technically takes about as many, like, maybe strokes to write, in terms of actual character space, it's a way more efficient language in that sense. You can fit so much more stuff into a smaller space. So when it comes to English, and it has to get translated, there's just like no good way to translate it directly. So you end up with, I feel like this is more of a problem in like visual novels and anime, but it kind of crops up in games every now and again. I wonder what the longest game title. Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2 Rise of the Witch King. What the fuck? Okay, I'm not going to do a bunch of research. Oh my god. Oh, it's that one visual novel. Oh no, it's the visual novel with like 800 words in the title. I'll read through it really quick, but this is what I mean. And again, this is also not short, but it's probably way more compact than if you were going to write this out in English. Rough translation of this game's title. Summer Colored High School Star. It's a little star character. Adolescent record. A summer at school on an island where I contemplate how the first day after I transferred, I ran into a childhood friend and was forced to join the journalism club where, while my days as a paparazzi kid with great scoops may be rather popular among the girls, but strangely my camera is full of panty shots and where my candid romance is going. That doesn't... It says rough translation, so I'll cut it some slack. Apparently that is 65 words long. Alright. One of my favorite examples, and this one sucks because my favorite fighting game of all time is Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R, which is kind of an amazing name, and it totally fits that game because it's the most excessive fighting game ever. Besides maybe Marvel, like Marvel 2. And it has a name that fits. It's just so hard to pitch to people to be like, it's called it's called a Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R. You can just call it GGXX ACPR. Or Plus R, or GGACPR. Like, there's so many acronyms and shortenings of that name. And it's such a good game. It's such a good game, but the name Guilty Gear has this problem in general, as do a lot of Japanese properties, like extremely otaku type Japanese properties, where the names are just too long. They're too long, and they take too many creative liberties, which in some sense I find kind of charming. In another sense, gets a little grating. Like not even like the super long titles that you'll see with light novels, because that's kind of like a light novel specific thing, and even there it's kind of recognized as being kind of exceptional. I'm talking like talking like, God, they're all going to be fighting games, aren't they? The problem with fighting games is that, like, they get all these different updates, and usually it's not, like, story updates, so they don't, like, add subtitles that relate to the story like you would with, like, an MMO expansion or something like that, or a DLC. It's just, like, Melty... Oh my god, here's the best example. Freaking Under Night in Birth. So let's look up Under Night in Birth versions. So Under Night in Birth is a fighting game from French Bread. Ooh, yeah. I'll talk about the new Melty later. Release. Let's see. Okay. So the original game was just called Under Night in Birth. It received an update entitled Under Night in Birth EXE: late. Okay. Then it got another update. Under Night in Birth exe colon late open bracket st close bracket. So at this point, it's gone a little. Okay, exe colon late is a little much, honestly. Like, why? What does the exe mean? Like, it's like, yeah, I guess it's an executable. Like, it's a computer program, but you don't have to be that literal. Why late, and why is there a colon? Like, it's not listing anything. It's just the word late. Is late maybe because it's under night, so it's like, oh, it's getting late, exe. And then you get to the st, and like, okay, why are we adding brackets? What do the brackets... This has like a weird coding vibe, which might be what they were going for? Maybe? I have no idea. What relevance do the letters ST hold? I have no idea. And then you get to the most recent, and I believe last version to date. I don't think they're going for anything. Yeah, because they're working on the new Melty Blood, so probably won't be receiving any more updates. And so they're ending off with Under Night in Birth exe colon late open bracket CL-R close bracket. And you're like, why? You just don't want people to buy your game, do you? Like, I don't see how you can be... Like, who's at the marketing department for these companies? Do they have... Is it... Like, who's on their marketing team? Do they have... Maybe it's like one person. Maybe it's like a sock puppet, and it's being puppeteered by the writer. Whoever writes the frickin' lore. And he's just way too into his own ideas and aesthetics. And he's like, yeah, no, this will be a great idea. People are gonna see that. They're gonna see this name. First of all, having the words "in birth" in your game's name is gonna be weird for a lot of people. I guess it's eye-catching, but most people are gonna find that pretty strange. And then to add all these weird, meaningless... Like, you look at Street Fighter. Street Fighter updates, it's like, okay. Street Fighter 3, new generation. Got it. Street Fighter 3, Second Impact. Cool. The second version. Street Fighter 3, Third Strike. Cool. The third version. Awesome. Then you got Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, and then Ultra Street Fighter 4. Was there a version in between? One of those? I don't think so. I think there were only 3 versions. But you're like, okay, that's an easy logical jump to make. Original, the vanilla, then super, then ultra. Okay. That's how superlatives work. Is that what superlative means? I don't really think so. They got a little weird with the Street Fighter 5 where they were like, okay, arcade edition. No, they did like tournament edition, and then arcade edition, and then champion edition. Which kind of like, I don't like, which one of those is the most updated? I guess champion, maybe? Yeah, it is. But like, okay, which one's closer? Like, I would imagine that arcade is not as updated as tournament? What does tournament mean? What does that imply? Fighting games have such terrible naming schemes. Don't even get me started on Guilty Gear being called... The first version being called Guilty Gear Xrd. The first version of Xrd was Guilty Gear Xrd Sign. So they just started with a subtitle. And then they had Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator. So it's really not clear at all which one of those is the first and then the second. And then to make it even less clear, the third version is Xrd Rev 2. So Sign, Revelator, Rev 2. Not like Sign 2 and then Sign 3. It's like they made a sub-series, but it's just the next update. And they're like, why did Guilty Gear not sell so great? Why did we only sell 90,000 copies? It's like, because you called it fucking Guilty Gear XR and Rev 2. No one knows what that means. I'm really glad that Strive is doing away with that, and they're just going to have the season passes and all that, which then they might have do the Street Fighter model where the end of every season they kind of bundle everything together into a new complete edition and all that. Japanese games are so hard. I don't know what they do, why. It's because I'm someone who loves Japanese games. You might have been able to tell that. Developers and publishers in Japan do not make it easy for you to buy their product, and I don't know why. It's like they want you to do everything except for buy their game. They want you to have to go through like I swear to God, whoever's in charge of like marketing and like setting up prices and like buying like the different packages for games, they must have gone to like the Franz Kafka school of marketing, because they make it a gauntlet, like just an impossible nightmare. Let me pull up the Steam page for Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2, because it's a great example. Okay. Well, here's your problem. So I'm gonna be Joey, the average Joe that wants to get into Guilty Gear Xrd. Wow, it's got the music is so cool, characters look awesome, it's got this amazing visual style. Let me go look it up. So if I type in Guilty Gear Xrd into Steam, I see 3 results. Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator at the top. Next is Guilty Gear Xrd Sign. And the next is Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 Upgrade. So I have no idea what any of this means. So you might not know this. You might make this mistake. I've heard of people making this mistake where they buy Sign. They buy the wrong version of the game, which is really annoying. Literally the first review is, oh no, it's a thumbs down. There's 0.7 hours at review time, and it says buy Revelator 2 and the Rev DLC. Oh, the fact this is a separate game from Xrd Revelator is honestly confounding, and has probably confused a ton of people who haven't looked into which is the right version to play, which I agree with. Oh no. Oh no! There's people who have posted within the last couple hours. I thought this was Rev 2. Oh no! Why? Oh, this is so sad. So you see that there's so this is like already there's a trap about which version of the game you're gonna buy. So because they are separate. That's the thing, is there's 3 versions of the game, but one of those versions, the last version, is a DLC upgrade to the second version. So maybe you read the reviews and you're like, okay, I gotta buy Revelator. Alright. So, naturally, I want the version with all the characters. How do I get all the oh, and then you look at the bundles and the options for buying, and you've got 4 options. They are as follows: Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator, okay, Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator Deluxe Edition, okay. None of these have any details as to what they actually include. It just says Deluxe Edition. So then you have Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator plus DLC characters, in parentheses, plus Rev 2 all-in-one, parentheses, does not include optional DLCs. What? What? And then lastly, Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator Deluxe plus Rev 2 Deluxe. All DLCs included, all in one. So the problem that you're running into is there are 2 bundles titled all in one. And the problem, you'd think like, okay, the one where with like both the Revelator and the Rev 2, the Revelator Deluxe and the Rev 2 Deluxe, all DLCs included. Yeah, that's what I want to go for. No, that's not the one you want to go for. Because all DLCs included means the bonus colors for characters. And you might think, okay, well, that's still content. Nope. Because if you just buy the tier below that, the plus DLC characters plus Rev 2 all-in-one, not including optional DLC, is that one, you can still just buy the colors with in-game currency that you get from like clearing arcade modes and like online and stuff. So it's like a trap. At every step there's a trap. They just why is buying this game so difficult? Why do Japanese devs make buying their game such a hassle? I haven't bought Final Fantasy XIV yet. I'm still on the free trial. But I have heard about as much that it is like insanely difficult to just like purchase in the first place. It has this whole horrible convoluted system where if you create an account for... Your account has basically a tag. It has a stain on it. If you make a free trial account, you are a free trial account. It is tagged as a free trial account. Okay. If you pay for the game at any point, even if it runs out, you can never go back to free trial, which is okay, fair enough. However, if you make your account... There's 2 ways to play on PC. Through the Square Enix website, downloading the game through the Square Enix website, or downloading it through Steam. If you download it through Steam and you make your account through the Steam version of the client, your account is permanently locked to Steam, and you cannot ever just buy it straight from the Square Enix store. So you have to purchase it as like DLC through the Steam store. Meaning that you can never take advantage of the special deals. You're basically going to pick one storefront. You're going to say, I am locked to these deals. Which kind of blows. Then it's a totally different situation if you play on console. Because if you play on PlayStation, you are bound to PlayStation. Like, it has console support, but your account is... And it has crossplay, which makes it better. Which makes it, like, mostly fine in practice. But the fact that if you make your account on the PS4, or I guess PS5 now, and then, like, say you decide not to buy a PS5. You have a PS4, start 14 on your PS4... Oh, you don't want to buy a PS5. You want to switch to PC gaming. You don't like consoles this generation. Oh, you're stuck to console. It's stuck to the PSN. It's irrevocably marked with like the 7. God has marked you with the 7, and all the days that you will walk on the earth, you are a console player. Oh, it's a nightmare. If/when I eventually end up graduating to being a paying member, I'll probably just go through the Square Enix store, because apparently it goes on sale more often there. So that's cool. Let's see. I want to move on. So I want to move on to, I had a bit of a heavy story. I don't feel like talking about that right now. So I'm not gonna skim over that. It was fine. It's just a little sad, and I don't want to talk about it right now. Something much nicer and really cool is, this one comes from us from Ars Technica. Museum obtains rare demo of id Software's Super Mario Bros. 3D PC port. Okay. This is super cool. This is super rad, and it excites me a lot. So if those in the audience were not aware, id Software, which was not id Software at this point, they were called Ideas from the Deep, or IFD. When it was basically just John Carmack and Tom Hall, if I'm remembering correctly. Created this in about a week while they were still working at, what were they called? Datasoft? No, I'm confusing them with someone else. Basically, the original id Software team who created Doom and Wolfenstein 3D and Commander Keen and all those, they all met together. Yeah, pretty much like the core original team. All met while they were working together at this company that basically just did software, like business software and like utility software for Apple II computers. And so John Carmack and John Romero, the two Johns, they loved making games, and basically they wanted to diversify the businesses. They wanted to offer, basically they just wanted to make games, and they didn't really like doing the business stuff. So they were like, hey, they talked to their boss and they were like, hey, can we maybe produce one game per month? Because what they would do is, the way the business worked is they would send out they would have an ad, I guess, that would run in newspapers or in magazines, in hobbyist Apple II enthusiast magazines, and then you would be able to order that month's disc of programs that they were putting out. And basically it was like a subscription service. They would email you a floppy disk with some software on it. They were like, hey, why don't we add a little extra value that the competition isn't doing and make some games that we can throw in? So every month they would basically throw together a game, and that's kind of how the original id Software team started. So one night while John Carmack, and I believe Tom Hall, if I'm remembering correctly, are at the office, one of the things that consoles had a leg up on PCs at the time was that consoles were able to do smooth scrolling graphics, basically. This is around the time of, this is 1980, I want to say 1989 or 1980. And, am I correct? Sorry, no, 1989 or 1990 is around that time. And so the NES already well established, the Super Nintendo on its way, and still at this point, PCs are struggling to do the same kind of smooth scrolling graphics that you'd find in a Mario game, for instance. because PCs were not built for gaming. PCs were built for gaming was like a little side thing, a little enthusiast thing. They were really just built for business and doing your spreadsheets and all that. And so the graphics hardware did not come built in that was conducive to it's probably like a memory allocation thing, just not conducive to that kind of scrolling graphics. Carmack developed this idea. Oh, what did he call it? It was like quadrant-based something rendering, like graphics rendering or something like that, where basically he realized that, like, if you would try to make a side scroller like Mario, if you were trying to recreate that in on an Apple II, for instance, or Commodore 64, or any of the IBM compatibles, you would end up with, like, it wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be really jerky and slow and weird, because it was trying to render, or draw in this case, might be the more appropriate term, is trying to draw all of the graphics at once. Carmack basically came up with this solution where the screen was split into several quadrants. You can imagine like one large quadrant that divides, like the lines run through like top and middle of the screen, and then lots of smaller quadrants contained within. And basically, the game will only load. It seems so normal now, but back then this was like revolutionary. System will only load those graphics that it should for where the screen is. And they were basically able to do that. They were able to use that to achieve a smooth scrolling effect, which was super revolutionary at the time. And Carmack is responsible in general for pushing gaming graphics software, or technology way farther. Like, he probably pushed that stuff 15 years in 6 years or something. He's a super genius. And so they figure this out. They're like, holy shit, we can do smooth scrolling on a PC. This is crazy. So what they immediately do is because they loved Super Mario Brothers 3. That was like a hit amongst them in the office at the time, in their little like back room that was reserved for them to make games. Because eventually the games that they made kind of became like a big seller, more so than the business software that the company was putting out. They loved Super Mario Brothers 3, and they were like, one of the reasons that they were so like miffed about not being able to replicate that is because they wanted something that just had that level of graphical fidelity. So when they achieved the smooth scrolling, they were like, holy crap. And they immediately spent a week recreating the first, is it the first level? Or is the first like map screen? I can't quite remember. Yeah, it looks like the first 4 levels of the game, something like that, maybe 6. And it's basically a demo where they recreated all the graphics of Super Mario Brothers 3. Down to the little hammer bro on the overworld screen. And they sent it off to Nintendo, and they were like, hey, do you want us to make this for like an official port to PCs? And Nintendo was basically like, no, we don't want to. We're not interested in the PC market right now. And so they were like, okay, and they just made Commander Keen, which is really fun. It's so funny to think that like how different maybe the trajectory of history had gone if Nintendo was a little more interested in the PC market. Because like if they started working for them, and then it's crazy. You could write like an alternate history fan fiction about what would have happened then. But yeah, so Nintendo's saying no was kind of an important step in the whole id Software, because Commander Keen became like their first big hit in the PC world, the PC gaming world. So now finally, this demo has been released and given to a museum. So the Strong National Museum of Play has obtained a rare demo disc of Super Mario Bros. 3 that pre-Doom id Software coded for MS-DOS PCs back in 1990. Okay, it was 1990. The acquisition will ensure that the historical curiosity will be preserved and accessible to researchers well into the future. So this is super cool. This like got me so hyped when I read it. Like, it's actually so dope, because this is like the first example of John Carmack pushing graphics software. And the reason that that's so cool and important is that this is the dude who like invented 3D graphics on a PC. And this is the guy who pushed all of these innovations of like Doom. It's like 3D, but it's running technically in 2D, but it has these like weird, it's like a 2.5D type game. And then Quake, it's like full 3D on a PC, never been seen before. And then Quake 2 was like a really polished upgrade to that engine. And like, when you actually look at like the genealogy of like the Quake engine, for instance, which is id Tech 2, I believe, 2 or 3. id Tech, the Quake engine was partially in the original Source engine. If no one was aware of this, Gabe Newell and one of the other co-founders of Valve were encouraged. Here's history. Here's why history's cool. So Doom was on Windows, and DOS, and Microsoft was trying to push Windows 95 as also being a gaming machine, because Apple had been slacking on that ever since Apple introduced their own proprietary programming language with the Apple II called AppleSoft Basic, which basically killed their whole prospects for games having any kind of a significant gaming scene, because they would it was just really hard to port. It made it a big pain to port games to an Apple machine compared to all the IBM compatibles, where you could generally just write it in like C or something, or one of its derivatives. And so Microsoft is like, Windows 95, we want to push games. Biggest game in the world is Doom. The biggest PC game in the world is Doom. It's on more. Doom was on more PCs in 1994 than Windows was. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Microsoft was thinking of buying id at one point. They didn't end up doing it, or id might have turned them down. But they did end up with a port that Carmack programmed, I believe, called WinDoom. It ran on Windows 95. Well, one of the whole angle to get Doom onto Windows was started by a couple of engineers, I believe, who brought it up as like, hey, this is like an opportunity for us to really pounce on this market. But in order to run Doom, they needed basically they needed graphics software to run the game. And so this is where DirectX comes from. DirectX was literally developed, the original version of DirectX, the first version, was literally developed so that it could run Doom. And the guys who programmed it met up with, they knew, I don't know, remember what Gabe Newell and the other guy were doing. They met them for some kind of project, and they were like, hey, you guys should like make a video game. And so Valve was formed. And the Source engine, or Gold Source, or which one came first? I can't remember. I think Gold Source came first. Was a modified version of the Quake engine. And so you start to see this genealogy of software, and you trace everything, like Source, and there's like a million things. The other thing to note is that it isn't just like the direct descendants of like the Quake engine. It's also just like the techniques that the Quake engine pioneered for things like lighting and stuff like that, and rendering. Like the ideas and the techniques that Carmack developed are still used in games to this day, which is absolutely crazy. So like every game you play right now on a PC that runs in 3D with 3D graphics owes something to Quake and to Carmack. And you look at this insane, it's like a tree where it just like all these branches go out, and then you like go all the way down to the roots, and the roots are this Super Mario Brothers 3 demo that they put together while they were just these like office workers. And it's so fucking cool. It's like the start. It's like it's the beginning of something amazing, which is why just looking at the pictures of it and the video that's up is, I would highly recommend you go check it out. It's so badass. It's so cool. It's so cool. It's literally, it's like this is the start. This is history. This is history, baby. This is like when you look at, anyone ever seen the like the first photograph, like known photograph ever taken? First photograph. Yeah, the world's oldest surviving photo, at least, was taken by Joseph Niepce? I have no idea how to pronounce that. In 1826 or 27. And it was the, God, what a weird photo. You get such weird feelings looking at this. It's called View from the Window at Le Gras. Such a weird, it almost looks like a pencil sketch, but it's like a photograph of like a real time, like a snapshot from time. And it's one of those things that kind of gives you weird emotions to look at. It just yeah, you look at it and it's like, wow, like the past existed and there was a whole world before I was born, and there was this Super Mario Brothers 3 demo. It's so wild. I am so jazzed, and it makes me legitimately really happy that this thing is out there. Yeah. Next topic. I'm really excited for Melty Blood Type Lumina, which comes out in September, which is, I always forget like how close July, August, like the middle months are to September. September always feels like it's way back. in the year, but it's kind of like kind of the beginning of the last third of the year. So if anyone who doesn't know, Melty Blood type Lumina, I mentioned Undernight in Birth, which is like a niche-ish anime-style fighting game. And it's made by this developer called French Bread. French Bread is most notable in fighting games previously for developing this thing called Melty Blood. Melty Blood is basically, if anyone is familiar with the Fate franchise, like Fate Stay Night and such, you've probably seen one of the main characters, Saber, the blonde girl with the blue. It's not really armor. It's like a battle garrobe with armor on it. You've probably seen her. It's made by Fate was a light novel series, visual novel series that was done by Type Moon, a group called Type Moon. And they had previously done several other visual novels. Namely, it's this one called Tsukihime, which I think just got a remake rather recently. And Melty Blood, for whatever reason, is a fighting game crossover adaptation of Tsukihime. So it has a bunch of characters from it, as well as a couple original characters and some characters from a few other Type Moon games, not including Fate, which I always thought was weird, but that's kind of like how you know it's hardcore, because Fate is far and away the most popular thing that Type Moon has ever done. It's their huge moneymaker. And they don't even have it in the fighting. Like, that's how they're like, no. That would be a cash grab. That would be a cash out. Sell out. We're sticking to the real Type Moon. That's how you know they're hardcore about it. So Melty Blood came out in like 2006 or something. What year was the original? The problem is that it got like updates for forever. Melty Blood. It got 2005. Oh, initial release date 2002, December 30th, 2002. So basically 2003. Christ, it's almost as old as I am. That is, yeah, it's weird to think about. So Melty Blood, it got a couple updates. How many updates did it get? It got Melty Blood, and then Melty Blood React, Melty Blood Act Cadenza, Melty Blood React Final Tuned, which both released in the same year, Cadenza and Final Tuned. Then Melty Blood Act Cadenza version B, and then Melty Blood Actress again, and then finally Melty Blood Actress again Current Code. So Current Code is the most recent and basically final version of it, of the game. Or it's like, oh, it's technically another game? The problem is, like, I have no idea which one of these are updates and which ones are like actual sequels. So basically, all you have to know is that Actress Again Current Code was the most recent version, came out in 2011. And it's a very niche, very hardcore anime-style fighting game. But it has some really cool systems in it and some pretty neat characters. One of the coolest things that I find about it is it's called the Moon system. So basically, there's about 30 characters in the game, but each character has, when you're in character select, when you select them, you pick from one of 3 different moons, which are basically like schemes or styles or like settings, like setups. I don't know how you would, versions of characters, I guess, is the most blunt way to put it. that they are full moon, half moon, and crescent moon. And the moon that you, each moon has like different ways of interacting with system mechanics. That's like universal across every character. Like full moon, the meter always works like this. Half moon, the meter always works like this. So there's like changes to the universal systems depending on which moon you pick. However, in terms of character specific stuff, every character's moons change their movesets, and it ranges from fairly minor to basically a different character. And so a lot of them end up being something like two of the moons are just sort of like different flavors of a similar character, with maybe one or two or three or however many, a small number of moves being changed. And then one of the moons is like completely different, like literally completely different moveset and play style. And it gets extreme enough to the point where like there's characters where like on tier lists, their crescent moon is like top tier, but their full moon is like bottom tier, and like it gets that extreme. Oh man, I forgot to mention, the music in these games is friggin' amazing. I use the music all the time in my videos. You've probably heard Sakura Koi Uta many times on my channel. The gameplay section of the Wikipedia has a little note that says, this section may be too long to read and navigate comfortably. Yeah, it has a lot of mechanics. Oh yeah, so the moon system, finish that thought. The moon system basically means that there aren't 30 characters, there's actually like 90 characters. And it's super cool, but it's extremely intimidating to learn. And I've always been curious about learning it. The problem is that the official release of the game uses really bad delay-based netcode. However, there is a community fan patch called the Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code Community Edition. So the MBAACCCE, which adds rollback netcode, which supposedly it works pretty, like it's like would be around like I think first generation rollback. And so that's cool, and I would use that. However, because it's like old, there's like no matchmaking, and it doesn't run through Fightcade. It runs through basically, you have to go on in order to play Melty Blood online, you have to go through Discord or something, or know someone who already plays the game, and then like literally like share your IP address with them and like dox yourself, so that you can play peer-to-peer. There's no matchmaking, there's none of that. It's I just don't feel like dealing with it, which is why the new game type Lumina is so exciting to me, because it feels like the Melty Blood made for people to get into Melty Blood, where it's new, it's got kind of a fresh start. Looks like they're sort of paring down or kind of streamlining the mechanics, which I'm all for, personally. I think streamlining mechanics in fighting games generally actually works out in their favor. Which it's different from simplifying. Streamlining is not the same as simplifying. And importantly, it's going to have rollback netcode, so it's going to be functional, probably very well functional if it's modern rollback online. And it's launching on like every platform. It's launching on like 4 or 5 platforms. And I'm pretty sure it's crossplay. I don't know if there's been word on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. So that's going to be sick. And I am really looking forward to it. Because I just want to do cool Melty Blood stuff. And it's cool to have a fighting game come out that is still like really leading into being a crazy mechanically complex fighter. I think Guilty Gear Strive, as much as I do have enjoyed it, and this is not anything bad about it, but it has gone more towards a slightly more elegant design, where things have been streamlined, things have been combined, characters have been simplified. In their moveset, at least, there's a new style that kind of demands a level of simplification. And despite the game, which I'm perfectly fine with all of those things, because I already have my crazy, over-the-top, extremely excessive Guilty Gear game in Plus R, so I don't mind. And Plus R has rollback, so the game will never die. I'm all for it. It's just like one of those... The ecosystem needs to be diverse. It's great to have more like cool, streamlined, accessible games like Strive. And even though the new Melty is looking more accessible, it's still got like, you look at footage and it's like, this is a Melty Blood game. This is a French bread ass, Melty Blood ass game. Even down to like the hit sounds. The hit sounds are so like, they go like, it's all like that. Like, it's so... I haven't even put a substantial amount of time into Melty Blood, and those sound effects are just like, they're so distinctive. Really cool, really like HD, super high quality sprite work on the characters, and really neat. I don't know how they do this, but stages have lighting that actually affects the characters. So there's like real-time lighting on the sprites. They're putting out videos on their Twitter like every day of gameplay showcases and like mechanical showcases and character showcases and stuff like that. And there's like one stage where there's a character standing under like a tree, and the tree is casting a shade on the ground, and it casts a shade on the character, and they walk out of the tree, and they're in the light, and it actually like reflects on their sprite. I don't know exactly how they do it, but it looks really cool. The game looks good. It has just like a really nice, like, it feels good. It feels good to hit stuff in those games. Oh, I completely forgot about one of the reasons that game feels so good is that Melty feels so good, and this also extends to Undernight, because Undernight uses a similar system, a similar combo system. So Melty Blood it's a cancel game. So it has 3 attack buttons, A, B, C, and you can do A, B, C, and you'll cancel one move into the other, and they'll just combo cleanly if you just hit them in sequence. However, it has this really neat mechanic or system called reverse beat. And reverse beat is basically, normally you can only go from like lighter to stronger. You can only chain upwards. Reverse beat allows you to go back once. So you can do A, B, C, B, C, or something like that, just for like to keep it simple. And with the characters' movesets and the amount of tools that they have, you can get some really cool stuff going, and it feels good. There's something about chaining up, then going down, and then going back up. It's like an arpeggio. It's like arpeggiated combos, arpeggioed combos. I could probably make a whole video on fighting games being like the most rhythmic genre, in my opinion. I really think that they are. I've played music. I played music for like 7-8 years, and fighting games to me, I guess, technically music rhythm games were the most. They should be the most musical, but to me, fighting games have always had this like. They've always reminded me of it naturally. Like I haven't gone looking for the comparisons. I've never had to like stretch it. It's just like, this reminds me of like this thing in music. I think about like practicing a combo in a fighting game is just like practicing a song. Even down to like, sometimes you practice a combo and like you get it down pat. You're like, I got this. I can do this in training mode, 100% consistency. Then you jump online and like you land the first hit and you just go, oh, and you're left out to dry. Your own brain leaves you out to dry. You have no idea what to do. You choke, and it feels like a completely different. It feels like all that practice you put in meant nothing. And the same thing happens in music. At least it happened to me. I could practice a really tough lick in like a song or something, and I played the trumpet. And I can do it cleanly when I'm just doing that, like 2 or 3 measures. And then I'm in jazz and we're going through the whole song. And we get to that part that I've practiced 50 times. Maybe not 50 times, but enough to where like I'm good on it, right? Like, yeah, I can do it. I'm good. We get to it and I just bomb it. I just fumble it. And it's bad. And I'm like, oh, what happened? That's what, and it's like you have to like, practicing in isolation sometimes just isn't enough. You gotta practice. You need some practical experience to put your things into context. Put what you've practiced into practice, if you know what I'm talking about. All these like, and even like the way that you learn combos in fighting games is so musical to me. It's such the same thing. Like practicing this song, there's like this one section, like this page that is really tough, and you break it down into chunks, and you're like, I'm going to do this part, and then this part, and this part. Sometimes this can just be like a couple measures or like 2 measures. That's just like a really hard bit, really hard phrase. Like, I'm going to take this piecemeal. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to do this slowly. I'm going to do the first 2 notes, then the first 3 notes, then the first 4 notes, and the first 5. And I'm just going to keep moving up until I have the rhythm. I have the timing. I have the notes and the pitches and all the little flourishes that the sheet music asks me to do. And learning combos, practicing them is so similar, where it's like, okay, I look at like the first 2 moves, I'm like, okay, this into this. And then I look back at the combo and I'm like, okay, then I do that and that into like this special. And you just slowly build up and you build forward. At least I do. I'm a bit of like a slow combo learner. And you just go piecemeal and you go step by step, and you eat it one bite at a time. And it was so funny. Like, I was learning, like the first fighting game I ever really sat down to learn was Skullgirls. And I remember just playing or being in training mode, practicing this one combo, and just taking it like that, of like breaking it down into steps, breaking it down into pieces. And then once I was able to do even like the first 2/3 of it, it was like so cool. Like, learning how to do a combo is such a fun, rewarding experience. Like once you actually get it, it is so maybe not fun. Fun's not the right word. Rewarding is just kind of the right word. You might be able to replace that with like fulfilling. So I love fighting games so goddamn much. Christ, how long have I been recording? I've been going for like an hour and a half. Jeez. I don't have that much else to say. I don't think what did I, yeah, I pretty much said everything that I pretty much been through all the topics. Feel free, anyone who's been listening to this point, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think of the podcast so far. If you have any questions, we could do a little fan mail section. That would be fun. I love talking to you guys. I love reading the comments and interacting, and I get to interact through like replies and stuff like that, but I think it would be really neat to be able to actually like talk and read through that stuff and host a little section like that. So for the very few people who are listening, and I think we just hit 400 subscribers. So that's baller. That's super cool. Anyone still watching, feel free to comment and like and subscribe and do all the things that people would say in an outro. Well, until next time, this has been the Cellarcast. I'm Tigan Moon, and Tigan Moon playing Type Moon games. Hoo-hoo. Later, bye.